Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Squeeze Podcast. And today is a little bit different than what we're usually getting into. We try to have a positive outlook on this channel and strive towards bettering yourself. A little bit of the drama that gets involved with relationships, but today we're going to be getting involved into something that was a little bit terrible, or not even a little bit, massively terrible. And the only reason we're getting into that is because it touches very close to home for me personally, because this person I knew in person. I've talked to her. I've even given this person a hug. This is about the story of Khadiyjah A. Pendergraph, the woman who is now being allegedly accused, and I'm only saying that loosely, allegedly accused, of killing her own daughter, drowning her in the bathtub on Thanksgiving, guys, or it was a day or so before Thanksgiving, as they're saying on the article. And I'm going to read you guys the article directly so that you can hear what the news has, but I'm going to be debunking a bunch of these facts, and we actually have another person here who's an eyewitness to her character and a close associate at one point.
An Orange County mother arrested on suspicion of killing her 9-year-old daughter. Police were called by a concerned family member to a home along Golden West Street near Spruce Street in Westminster Friday afternoon.
Khadiyjah was charged with a felony of one count on Tuesday, this week Tuesday. So if you're watching this video, today is the 3rd, so that was Tuesday of this week. Khadiyjah was charged with one count of felony murder. She was arrested last week in a grocery store in, I've never been in this part of California, so I'm going to butcher this name, Alistillo Viejo. According to Orange County District Office, the girl's father placed a missing persons report after several calls into the office. The father tried to call Khadiyjah several times and was unable to obtain, get any access from her. So he went ahead and filed a missing persons report. So I want you guys to understand, to file a missing persons report, you have to wait over 24 hours. So even with him calling several times and obviously feeling some type of way about what was going on, he was unable to even obtain that missing persons report until the next day. After he requested the welfare check on the daughter and Khadiyjah, after receiving concerning messages from what they say on this article, ex-wife, I'm gonna debunk it. She was never married, absolutely never married. Regarding his daughter, he went to proceed to call the DAs. When he attempted to pick up his daughter, which was scheduled on Thanksgiving, the apartment door was locked and no one answered. This is all press release from the DA's office. Authorities say that Victoria, now this is the daughter, Victoria used a wheelchair and could not speak. Now, I wasn't familiar with her daughter 100%, but to my knowledge, and I had spoken to her recent enough to have seen her daughter, because her daughter was 9 years old. Her daughter was not in a wheelchair. Now, she did have disabilities where she was bedridden a lot, but she was in crutches, and she was a fully mobile child. On top of that, she did have some speech, and I'm not going to say that she was completely mute. But the article is misinformed where they're saying that the young lady did not have the ability to speak. The officers went to say they responded to the home call when they forced their way into the Westminster residence. They found the dead child alone with no obvious signs of trauma, according to Sergeant Equesta. Now they leave this part off with a very grim message. So they say, while families across America were home, sitting, eating dinner at Thanksgiving, this child had to experience her death and be left in the tub horribly to bloat and grow as her mother by her own mother as she left her there. Orange County District Attorney Todd Spencer, words simply do not exist to express the utter heartbreak, knowing that this little girl could not even scream for help as her mother pushed her underwater and cut her life tragically short. So I wanted to give you guys a little understanding from my standpoint. That's the only reason I'm even doing this episode. That people who honestly knew her knew that Khadiyjah needed some help far beyond what was given to her, obviously, in transition from moving from Maryland to California. Now, she had gotten a bit of mental health, but if you knew the young lady, this is something that you would not have been surprised about. And I only say that because it's very speculatory, but she lost another family member that I'm going to speak on later in the episode, that we honestly believe that she had some ties in the loss of that family member. But I want to give you guys a little bit of one-on-one information, account from an older friend. So we're going to switch on over to her and let her give you a story of how, her experience was with Khadiyjah.
Hey. So this is kind of an interesting topic because when I first heard the news, I was reading the article and I didn't want to believe it, or I really want to say I was more in shock more than anything else. It's really unfortunate when I think about like a mom hurting their child, and then it's really unfortunate when I think about the fact that Khadiyjah herself was an only child. It was just like her and her mom for the longest. I don't recall her ever really talking about any other family, not her father or anything like that. So I always assumed when I heard that she had a child, that was a good thing. She was curating her own family. But now when I hear this, I'm like, oh my goodness, what type of frame of mind do you have to be in to want to hurt your only child? So a lot of things have really made me think back to our relationship. It's something that you look back and you try and make sense of things. I think that's the normal approach. You want to almost give yourself an answer and be like, okay, well, why would this person do this? And I know we often say like mental health is a real concern for a lot of people, but to what degree? And we knew Khadiyjah middle school time frame.
Well, to my own knowledge, I only remember her in high school, but she did have close ties with even one of my nieces. They were cheerleading together, all those kind of things. So she had a lot of close ties with a lot of people that, I know at least, and on top of that, she definitely kept up the facade of like a typical young lady, but once you got to know her a little bit more intimately, those screws came loose very quickly.
That's true too. She definitely, and it's weird because her mannerisms back then, I would be like, I guess, aren't we all a little
off,
yes. A little abnormal? Mm-hmm. So you don't attribute it to being like real issues until you start to kind of peel the layers back, because, kind of pivoting back to what you said, where we know for a fact the circumstances with her daughter are unfortunate, but it's also something that makes you linger and think about what happened to her mom. So, I always kind of think like, oh my goodness, maybe, and now for sure, I'm like, And Khadiyjah had a very turbulent relationship with her mom.
And I definitely can speak on that, because it was even a time, now, and I'm not trying to be too graphic for anybody who might feel sensitive about it, but it was a time like, it was just me, and I won't say anybody's name, but it was a couple of other young men that lived in the neighborhood that we all lived in at the time, and we could just, and it wouldn't even be a one-time off, but you could see Khadiyjah's mother going to town on her, and I'm, ass whooping, beaten, but at this one particular story, she was getting her ass whooped, and her mom pulled a trophy off the top of the TV and just went to town on her, just back and forth. So I know that their relationship was extremely turbulent, and there was times where I would see her run off in the middle of the streets and just walk around just to get away from her mom. So I do understand that there was a lot of unresolved issues between the two.
For sure. And, we got to paint a picture of the time period. We're talking, come home before the street lights come on. Yeah. That's the time period. And it wasn't no one ever really looked at your parents beating you or spanking you as a problem. Everybody would be like, oh, well, that's normal. That's just what we do in the Black community. Like, that's how we discipline children. And even back then, the way that Khadijah would talk about her mother was very much so negative. It was never from the angle of like, oh, I'm beef, but I love her, or, that's just how my mom is. You know how sometimes you kind of separate yourself from the situation. She was never like that. She always would be like, I can't stand her, I hate her, X, Y, and Z. So, thinking about that, I'm like, I don't know what it's like to have a child who has any issues. I feel blessed and highly favored. I don't have any of those issues, but I do know it takes a strong personality, and you have to have a good support system. There's a lot of factors that go into play. And then if you also already have your own internalized demons, maybe there's other things there. So all of those factors make me feel like this is just unfortunate all the way around. But even going back to her mom and her dynamic, I'm just like, one has to wonder. And specifically, one of the things that I think about a lot is like, Khadijah lost her mom when we were around the age of 17-ish.
17, 18. And, go ahead.
Yeah, we were in that very young phase. Like, this is the time period where I feel like you need your parents. Like, you're transitioning into adulthood, but you're not quite there, you know?
You need to know those last little bit of steps to actually be that adult that you need to be. And,
correct.
It's a lot of things missing. Because, even if we bring it back all the way full circle, I don't even know about a father, So
at all.
We talk about the mom, but it definitely takes two to tango. So there was somebody that was missing. There's a missing piece to this puzzle that comes from that, at least that side, because we don't even know if there was some certain issues that were coming from there that could be hereditary and or past traumas from that as well.
That's true too, because I don't recall her ever talking about her dad.
Me neither.
Like, at all. I don't even recall her. You know how some people have family members that pop up in your life where it's like, oh, I'm going to my cousin's house. I don't recall that. I do know she had like an aunt, because she didn't like the aunt either.
And that was after the mother passed, and yeah.
Yeah, so I know about that, but I never saw anyone like actively in her life show up to either be present for something, or be a part of any activities that was going on in her life, birthday parties. Like, there was none of that I recall. And we're talking years. We're not talking like a small period of time of knowing somebody.
Yeah, we knew her for over a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, so, yeah.
I don't recall any of that. And when her mom had... So, to give some background, Khadijah's mom already had health concerns. She was already someone who, if you were to see her, would already assume, like, okay, you might not... Yeah, there's something here. You may not know specifics, but you could tell she just didn't have the physique of someone that was just like super healthy. But she, in my opinion, even though her approach to parenting might not have been favorable, she was trying to be a mom. And by that I mean she would ask for the normal things, which is like, when you get home from school, call me so I know that you're in the house. Or if you're going to go over someone's house,
let me know.
Yes, call me from their house, because we're talking landline phones.
Yeah, it was before cell phone, guys. So
okay.
We've known her for that kind of time.
And if there was a cell phone, we talking Nokia. We talking the block phone. You know what I'm saying?
Blockchain, and nobody had service. They only had 2 games on that phone: the crab and something else.
Big facts.
Like, what was it? Pong or something like that.
Yes,
something
and the little snake games. You know what I'm saying? This is a time period where you can go missing. Okay. Easily. So she was asking for the normal things that I felt like any parent would ask. And a lot of us were latchkey kids, which is like, you got your own key, you come home, and your parents are just hoping that you're there. That's the dynamic. So a lot of their arguments, I would often tell Khadijah, like, come on, just give her what she wants, which is just like, call her, follow up. And I would talk to her mom often, because her mom would be like, oh, Miracle, I know if she's with you, everything's fine. I really wasn't getting into too much. So, her mom would always be like, okay, you're level-headed. We'll be all right with this. Now, I specifically recall when her mom passed away. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, your mom died, because I was kind of taken aback. Mind you, it's not like we were hanging out with our parents. But it's like, somebody long enough to know their parents. You've seen them, had conversations. It's like, that's your mom. I know your mom. And when she passed away, she was just like, okay, yeah, like, it's sad and everything, and it's really unfortunate, and everyone keeps on bringing it up, but, I really don't want to talk about it. I never heard from her how she found her mom, the circumstances around how her mother passed away, even the days preceding anything after her mom passed away, the service for her mother. I mean, like big chunks of information that was just like not even a conversation. And me and Khadijah used to spend the night at each other's houses. Like, I really was around this girl. It's not one of those things where it's like a one-off situation. So it's like we never had those talks. We never even touched on the subject. And I remember a few times I'd be like, it's okay to be upset, or it's okay to feel sad, or even displace some of your emotions on things, because after her mother passed away, she received.
No, hold on. Let me pause you, because I do want to get into this before you give that information, because this is important to it. So again, this is going to be speculatory, basically, but if you know, the streets were talking. When Khadijah's mother passed, there was vast majority of rumors going around. One particularly that we're going to latch on to that came from somebody extremely close. They didn't want to give their information, so we're not going to share their information. But we just know that they were extremely close to her. Like Miracle was saying here, that her mother did have some health concerns. As far as we know, they were heart related. What I was told from that certain person was that Khadijah's mother was on an extremely strict regimen of pills, and the way that she chose to, so the speculation is that she is the one that killed her mother. And I'm just going to say that flat out. And it was going around for a long time. Her attitude about it was a lot of things that very much shifted in her, that was very visible to people, I would think, everywhere. But she, like she was saying, she wasn't talking about it, but she would still come to classes and stuff. To my knowledge, her mother passed, and she was back in class like 2 days later. Like nothing ever happened. Now, I know that everybody copes with things differently, but there was a large majority of things that needed to be processed before coming back to even school and trying to make your life stay regular. And I know that a lot of people were probably like, well, she wanted to finish and stuff like that. There was nobody to push her at that moment. Now, there was the aunt and all this other stuff, and she did receive a substantial amount of monetary gain, because when her mother passed away, she was the sole inheritor of the insurance policy for her. It was so speculative and very much something that we all were easily able to believe, is that the day her mother passed, we have the fact that her cat that they only had, because there was only three people in the house, the cat had also passed away the same day. Now, Miracle, please continue. You were saying about the substantial amount of money.
So, after Khadijah's mother had passed away, our relationship took a uptick as far as how much time we spent together. I want to say I saw Khadijah almost every single day after her mother passed away, and she didn't drive yet at that time. So anytime she was running certain errands, I did drive. So I had taken her to the bank. I remember one statement that she said that kind of stands out was she referenced how she felt like her mother was punishing her because she can't get the life insurance policy until she turns 18. And there was like a clause somewhere where it was kind of listed where it was tiered, where she could get a portion, but over a course of time.
So like prorated, it was segmented.
Right, like an annuity, you know what I'm saying?
It's almost like a safety net for her too as well,
yes.
So that way she didn't, go extremely overboard with that type of money, because being young, anything could happen.
Yes, and when she turned 18, she made sure that she received her first deposit. This was also the only other time that I really heard about her talking about her aunt, because the aunt also very much so wanted her to be mindful about, how she used the proceeds and really consider the future and what that would look like for her life. And I don't think Khadijah was really thinking about that. And mind you, we are the same age. It's funny because I think Khadijah is definitely one grade behind me. Like, I graduated high school 2009, she graduated 2010. So it's like maybe we were a year apart, because I'm not quite sure at this point. But she was just one grade behind me. So it's enough for me to be like, girl, I don't have it together, so I know you're not going to have it together. Maybe that is a good idea, to not like have access to all that money all at once. And we're talking like a quarter, you know what I'm saying? Like a nice chunk of money.
Say that out for the people, because they might not know. A quarter of what?
A quarter of $1 million.
Okay.
You know, so that's a nice chunk of money to have, and you're young. And mind you, at this time, I don't recall Khadiyjah ever talking about college. I don't recall her ever really talking about doing anything beyond herself. Like, think young, you know, young. And
just wanting to experience life and see things for what they are, and be able to say that you're doing more than somebody else, because it's the keeping up with the Joneses.
Pretty much. And that's exactly what happened. Over the course of that year, she had gotten an apartment for herself. And matter of fact, it was in Vermont area. I'll never forget it, because she had a studio apartment. As soon as you kind of enter the apartment complex.
I say domicile.
The apartment complex. Her door was like right there. And I was like, okay, this is good. And she was like, oh, I paid for the apartment for the entire year. And, you know, I'm just like so happy to have my own space. She didn't move far from, you know, where she lived, you know, but I can understand not wanting to be in the same location.
To be honest, and this is just off memory's sake, I believe it was only about walking distance away from where you know, she used to priorly live, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You could walk to, and funny enough, the address where she lived on the other side of my complex. I mean, we're in the same complex, but as far as buildings, we could walk to each other's buildings. So I really was seeing Khadiyjah all the time at this point. And that's when I noticed like a lot of things that, looking back, definitely not normal. I'm going to give a few examples, but primarily just, if you've ever been around anybody who's lost somebody close, there are a lot of emotional phases that you go through. There's the anger, there's the sadness, there's the, oh, what if, you know, all of those factors you tend to see play out in one way or another.
Yeah, the
and
grief, the acceptance, the
all that good jazz. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some people fly through the emotions faster than others, and in this situation, any of them. If anything, I would see more so anger, but about the financial aspect, and that was years later. The time period was filled with drugs, drinking, hanging out late, pretty much all the things she said she wanted to do, but her mom would never allow her to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like living La Vida Loca. And, you know, I know that is a way that people kind of grieve, but there just still was never no reminiscing.
Well, because I specialize in this, the coping mechanism that comes with drugs, a lot of people use it, and I think that people need to understand that the high that you obtain is a way to escape all of the things that you got going on. Is because like your thoughts are a little less reactive, so you're not thinking about all the things as hardly as you would be while under a sober mentality. So a lot of people use these things as the crutches, but it becomes a detriment, because then it becomes something that you have to keep up, you know, so that way you can stay under this umbrella of not feeling anything. And I'm not telling anybody to go about doing this, because it absolutely destroys your life. So I would not recommend anybody trying to go about doing all these things. But the thought process is to escape, is the only thing I'm trying to highlight.
I can see that. The only issue would be she wasn't the one that would be typically consuming, right? The group of people that she wound up hanging out with were definitely a group of people that her mother would have never allowed her to hang out with. They were older. Well, when I say looking to manipulate for males, I'm speaking more so from the angle of most men are looking to pursue you anyway. You know, the angle is the perception of, I'm going to go after you if I like you, or may not necessarily like you, but like something about you.
So you're saying just for, you know, physical pleasures.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or other pleasures, which in her case is financial means.
Gotcha.
So if it's known within the neighborhood already, hey, this is someone who's underage, now they have an apartment by themselves, I know that they haven't gone too far from the neighborhood. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into play as to why somebody might reach out to you. And you're getting, for Khadiyjah, she was getting attention from people that she wasn't typically getting attention from. So all of those things make you easier to kind of maneuver. And she wasn't the one that was really partaking in half of the things that she was purchasing, but the people that she was around knew that she had the means to do it, and she didn't want to be by herself a lot of times, and it's just a snowball effect.
Well, even there, then, do you think that those were cries for help?
I feel like Yes, in the sense of not wanting to be alone, but not necessarily the conventional cries for help, like, I feel sad that my mom's not here. More so, I feel sad that I'm alone, period. I think that that is more so what she was exhibiting, because we had conversations about that too. I'm like, stop hanging out with such and such, or stop being around this person because they clearly only want X, Y, and Z. And she's like, oh no, like, we're gonna go to prom together, and because we're gonna go to prom together, that's why I'm spending this amount of money. Prom, for example, she dropped a bag on prom. She covered everything from tuxedos for her date to her dress and the ride that they shared, just everything. And she was dealing with someone who had already graduated. They're away at school at this point, and she was making sure that they came back in town on a regular basis. And just even the neighborhood folks that she was hanging out with were not the typical group of folks that we were hanging out with. So it's just like,
of the hood descent.
Oh, for sure.
But I do have a question that you're saying something that is she was doing a lot of spending, but did you ever know her to obtain a job?
No. No. Not even any attempts. And within that year, I know that she didn't finish out her lease at her apartment, and she said that she wanted to go to California. And I was like, California, of all places, why you want to go so far? And she's like, well, all of you guys are in college. Like, all the people that I hang out with have kind of moved on to the next chapter. Like, I've always wanted to see California. I want to travel the world. And I'm like, okay. And she had purchased a vehicle. So there were things that she was doing to that was one of the last times I saw Khadiyjah, is when she was moving out to California. We would stay in touch. We would talk.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. What was the interaction like when she got out there, though? What was it? Did you feel like anything shifted when she moved away?
Yeah, I feel like our communication was stagnant, and that could be in part because the lifestyle that she was living in Maryland before she left, I already was like, this is just not where it's at. We were kind of not seeing eye to eye because I'm going off to college. I'm at school at this point. I've already moved into my dorm, and yes, we're talking, but a lot of the things that I knew that she was already doing before I went to school, I was like, this just isn't it. And she was still dealing with people that I'm like, they're using you, or I feel like it's the right thing to do, to tell your friend, like, hey, this is not a good path that you're headed down.
No, absolutely, you definitely need to do that. But was she ever receptive to any of the things? She wasn't, even a little bit?
I think that I know she understood that people were using her, because she was looking at it from her finances. She could see that her finances were dwindling away, and she could see that all of the people who were around her, excluding me and maybe like one other person, never asked her for anything, or were just truly around her just for the sake of, like, I've known you before this, like, I know that this is a hard time, so it's like I'm here as more so like support, like I'm your friend. But the other people never saw these people before. I don't know who these people are. So, on the friend tip, I'm telling her, like, hey, why is it that you're always ordering food for these people and they live states away? You're ordering food for them. That's kind of weird, don't you think? I mean, I live up the block and we don't even order pizza for each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it make sense. And then as time progressed, if she were to bring up to people, hey, kind of return the favor, almost like scratch my back, I scratch yours, they're looking at her like, why are you asking? You got it like that. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. But, by this point, she already feels like I'm almost beating a dead horse.
Right.
And so our relationship was a little different by the time by the end of that year. So when she was moving to California, it was one of those things where it's like, maybe a change of scenery is good. Maybe this is what you need, like a fresh start away from everybody else. And you can kind of just focus on what you want to do for the future. So we still stayed in touch. We would still talk to one another. And in the time that she was away, I wound up meeting my fiance at that point. The wedding is planned. I'm like, hey, I really thought about this. I want you to be a bridesmaid. Can you come back for my wedding? And she's like, absolutely, I'll be there. And she does come back. But on her literally within the first 30 minutes of her arrival, she wanted me to drop her off at a gentleman's house that she had been texting so that they could have a little
rendezvous.
Yeah. And then for me to pick her up.
So you're supposed to court her along for
For sure. Uber before
her
Uber.
appointments, her D appointments. She had to get those vitamins. You just didn't know.
That's crazy. Okay.
You never know. Her deficiency levels were probably crazy.
Well, that's a conversation for another day.
Indeed.
Which that already kind of made me feel some type of way, because I'm like, I haven't seen you. This is probably a good time for us to catch up, see how life is going. And I do know that in the ride from the airport to this said individual's house, she expressed that she was on her last leg of money, which was alarming because we know the amounts were up there. And I was giving her advice truly from just financial means. I was just like, hey, that old vehicle that you had, just from a year ago, sell it, maybe kind of consolidate what you can, maybe, I'm giving, basics. It's like, get a job, or, just figure out what you want to do. Maybe go to school, and then you could live on campus, and then you don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. But she was very pessimistic. She wasn't very receptive at this point. So something had changed in her time in California, where it's like, she just didn't think that it was going to work out for her. We wound up having a falling out during this time. She wasn't even a part of my wedding. And mind you, we had gotten her...
You just said you picked her up from the airport to come to your wedding.
Okay. So I'm going to explain what happened. I picked up Khadiyjah from the airport for the wedding, for sure. Dropped her off at her appointment. Picked her up from said appointment.
Okay.
She came to my house. She was staying with me, but she was very negative. And my mother even was saying, like, she's not happy about you getting married. Like, she's not in a good space. Like, she just doesn't seem the same. And this is my mom, who knows her as well. And she's speaking from the angle of, like, as a mom, Shorty seems like she needs a hug. And I'm like, okay. I didn't think anything of it. I'm high off I'm about to get married. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, you were high on your life for a moment, and that's perfectly...
That's, and she wasn't really talking about anything. Not to say she wasn't speaking, but the moments when we were having conversations, it was very much so D as the primary subject matter, and just shocked that I'm getting married, and I'm like, girl, I'm shocked too. I'm young as hell, you know what I'm saying? Yes. I'm surprised. So, a lot of our conversations was that. But then it started to get more negative, where my mom's like, okay, we're at the venue. I'm asking her input on, placement of things, and she's just rolling her eyes saying, like, does it matter? Does it matter? So my mother is like, what's up with your girl? I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna talk to her. So, I pull her to the side. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, it just seems like you're in a different place. Like, you're here, but you're not really here. And she was frustrated, but she was like, I just don't understand, because, you're getting married, but the guy that I came out here and saw, he hasn't even returned my text messages. And at this point, I'm just like, well, it could just be, maybe he's asleep. Like, I don't know. Once again, I'm high off of my own situation. So I'm super optimistic for everybody's situation. So I'm like, I don't know. It could be X, Y, and Z. And then she kind of she got really upset with me. And she was like, oh, you think everything's going to work out because it works out for you. And that's just not how life is. Like, bad things happen to people all the time. And you just don't understand. And I'm looking at her like, girl, pump your brakes. I'm just trying to tell you that it might work out for you. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. And then it pivots again. And it's like, honestly, I wasn't even going to bring this up, but, like, I think your sister stole my glasses. So it's like,
what?
Yes. She thought some sunglasses that she purchased, and she threw out the number. She was like, they cost me almost $200. Like, I think she stole my glasses. So, fun fact, I have a younger sister. She's 7 years younger than me. So it's like, I'm not going to put anything past anybody, but let's be real. My sister don't care about how much your sunglasses cost.
Right.
Okay? She's not putting two and two together. She's out here probably, like, even if she saw them, she probably thinks it's mine. So before we jump to the conclusion that it's anything negative, like, you're wilding.
Yeah, but you also, just to put it into light, and I'm not saying that you were wrong in your statement. You were absolutely correct. It's probably that she was feeling the weight of the money, because maybe she felt like she could return the glasses and get a little cash back or whatever it was. But please go ahead.
I agree. I know that the financial concerns were the concern, but this escalated to us full-blown yelling at one another, and I'm like, yo, shorty, you could go. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. You could get the fuck. Excuse my French, but you
You're
can't.
fine. You can cuss on here.
Yeah, I was like, you could just exit stage left. And she was like, taking it back. She's like, oh, I came all the way out here for you. I was like, did you though? Because when I picked you up, you got dick. Like, I don't know how much of this is really for me as it is for you to be like a kumbaya because you're back in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not given you're here for the wedding. And that was the last time we spoke. This is 2012. It was like 2 days before my wedding. So yeah, all of the things that unfolded now that I read / saw, I'm not necessarily taken aback for the loss of her daughter, more so just the dynamic. It's like it was your only child. We're young. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in our 30s, so we're young, and now your life is it's cut short. I mean,
it's not even just her life. See, and this is where I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of burning questions, and obviously this episode is going to have some continuations. But first burning question I have, and I know that you can't answer it, I'm not asking you directly, but where was the father the entire time? What was he doing? Why wasn't he more hands-on? Because just like we and you were having this conversation, we knew there was something was off with her. And there's no way 9 years are going to go past and I'm not going to feel like something is wrong with my daughter being with somebody I feel like is off like that.
Well, okay, so you got to ask yourself a few loaded questions.
No, I know you're going to talk about the custody and all these other kind of things, and that's respectable.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to say is these are the times, now this is this particular situation where if you knew it was enough off about it, even the heavy drugs and stuff like that I wasn't really aware about, but if any of those things were kind of aware, that's when you really need to fight extra hard, and then you probably gotta throw somebody up under the bus, because I know a lot of these dudes, I'll be real with you, will try to protect that woman still to the day because they feel like, okay, well, just in case I can't handle it, they need a mother.
I could see all of those factors, but also, okay, I don't want to throw anybody underneath the bus unnecessarily, because the same way we knew her years ago and we knew she was off, it's not like any of us went to any tabloids or did anything extra to be like, hey, something's off about Shorty Low, possibly X, Y, and Z.
That's true.
Just because you have I don't want to cast any blame on anybody. So I don't know what the situation was when she was in California with her partner. So I can't assume that they should have seen all the signs and gotten their daughter out of there. And I'm sure at this point everybody is shoulda, coulda, woulda themselves to death because, you know, they lost a life. So I don't want to put that out into the atmosphere. But I know that we saw certain antics, and maybe between then and now she got some treatment, or maybe at one point she seemed well enough to just handle things by herself, but it's hard to say.
Now, as far as speculation goes, do you think that if proven guilty that she should be given prison time, or should there be a different type of sentence that you think that she should be given?
As far as sentencing is concerned?
As far as sentencing, nothing other than that.
I feel like any crime that you actually commit and you are arrested for, you should serve time. I don't know the grounds behind how long. I know they said 25 years to life, but I feel like that's reasonable because you took a life. So I don't see anything of that being egregious, you know. I think it's more egregious if you take someone's life, especially in this capacity, it's her child, and you're able to get through the court proceedings and come out and just live your regular life like nothing happened. So that's more concerning to me.
That's a deeply concerning situation, because the reason I posed the question is I know a lot of people are against the criminal justice system and they want different types of rehabilitation. So I was just curious if you think that there was something else that they could do. Now, I don't even think that a long-term counseling would change my thoughts of her needing to be incarcerated, because I think that, yeah, she does need to serve time as well. Like, and it shouldn't be a if and but or anything else in between about it, if proven guilty.
Yeah, well, you know, I feel like depending on any case, anything that's not heinous, and by that I mean no life was lost, I have a very different interpretation of how much time you should serve. My father's incarcerated. So the premise for why I feel like you don't have to necessarily lock someone away for life depending on the crime is something I believe in. But if you have taken someone's life, it's proven, we have DNA sampling, and in this case she's already admitted to the circumstances. It's not like she didn't state on record certain things. That's why they're able to say, hey, this is what transpired. No, 25 years seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, with it being so tough, I would say that it's nothing that we can do as far as reciprocity for the other family, but you know, of course, my prayers and condolences go out. I think that society as a whole needs to give them their space, and I know that that's not what we're going to get from people, obviously, because just like you said, everybody's going to be what if and that, you know, asking questions, wanting to know, you know, whatever information they can get out of it just for their own satisfaction. But I think that we as a people need to respect that they're going through something right now and try to, you know, at least give them that kind of space.
It would be nice if we could put the world on pause and allow for people to grieve in privacy. But that's not. And if the next best thing is to acknowledge like wrongdoing was done, you know, we share the weight of understanding that that is a terrible thing to endure as a family. I felt like that's respectful as well. I don't expect for anybody to truly understand unless you've gone through an identical situation, so it's not reasonable to say that, but I do feel like to address Khadijah but not give light to the fact that the life that was lost was a child, that there's a family that's going to be suffering, to not even touch base on this impacted more than just her and her child. It's far beyond that, because even now us talking about it, like, you got to think back to her mom, and now you're kind of playing things over again in your mind, like, what did we miss?
Yeah,
what did we not talk about?
What were we not seeing that could have been like something we could have let somebody else know about? I think that also on top of that, there is this whole preconceived notion that we can pass our judgment automatically because we heard something happen. So that there's the notion that you don't want to be the judge and jury for somebody, if you get what I mean. I think that to take away from the fact that she did, of course, commit a heinous crime, and like you said, she had admitted to it. Even if you take away all of that, the mental state and all these other kind of things that weren't addressed beforehand are things that obviously need to be addressed, especially since we're not in a place where we're handling like a death penalty situation. Because I mean, at the end of the day, they say it's rehabilitation, so there has to be some type of fruits or coming, like, it's not like a coming of age, but coming to realization.
I mean, I'm sure that that's the hopes.
That
right?
is the hope. That's the hopes.
That's the hopes.
Because it's not a reality until it actually happens.
Very true. I don't know if I can necessarily see a connection there in this circumstance, just because what was written in the article in regards to her stating she attempted to take her own life afterwards, a lot of those things make me have my own pause and question, because you didn't, and you could have did it beforehand, and you could have given your child to the parent that you made them with, who was actively looking for said child. She clearly was on a routine. You know, the anticipated plans was that she was going to spend Thanksgiving with her father. So there are factors that make me a little less inclined to believe that rehabilitation is something that one can hope for in this. I think prison is a reasonable place for people who do wrongdoing and just can't align themselves with society. That's perfectly fine. No one's saying that. I don't know what's going on in prison directly. Like, I'm not saying solitary confinement or whatever the case may be, but it's like, if you do something egregious by society standards, it's completely reasonable for you to just go to prison. And this is one of those things where it's like, you've taken a young child's life. It's completely reasonable to say, okay, if you don't rehabilitate, it's fine, because you need to stay there. Just sit down.
Yeah, and just like even with the speculatory allegations with her mother, I just think that there is too much going on up there for her to walk amongst regular society, even after this type of situation. And if we're going back to what you said about her not taking her own life, and this is just a standpoint, I'm not saying that, you know, because I if you know anybody that's, you know, suicidal and stuff, please have them reach out to the suicide hotline, the national, there's local ones, all those kind of things. But what I wanted to get to is, if she could do it to other people, why she couldn't do it to herself? You know, because you have the audacity to go out and do it to others. But that's another coping mechanism to escape. It's like, well, I want to get away from this life so I can get away from it, and then now I can assimilate a new one. At least that's how I feel about it. I can't be right. You know, I could be right or I could be wrong.
My correlation is the same. I feel the same way. I think that if you want to inflict pain, you can inflict it on yourself or you on other people. And sometimes when I think about pain inflicted on vulnerable people, especially, it's more concerning. If you're abusing a child that's already in your care, if you're abusing an animal, you know, that cannot speak, if you're abusing the elderly and they are someone that depends on you, there's already too much authority over someone else. It's the same authority over self. Mm-hmm. So to go the route of hurting someone else when you can just, if you truly feel like, you know what, I need not be here, that is an option that is afforded to you. Many people do not agree. However, it is something that could have been the case. And she willingly disclosed that. She said she attempted after the fact. So it's almost like, you know, I'm not in your mind, so I can't assume that you're trying to escape because you're so mentally unstable. You could just be trying to escape that you've done something heinous. Maybe you came to the realization like, oh my gosh, I lost my child in the bathtub. You know, this is X, Y, and Z. But you didn't seek authorities. You didn't do the normal steps that I would think someone would do if they really felt, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Sad, depressed, any kind of remorse, even a little
instantly. Mm-hmm. That's what I would think would happen. Mm-hmm. You know, if self-preservation was your first thought, then that means more than likely, you know, that reforming thought process is not what I'm getting from this.
Well, yeah, I definitely understand all the stuff that you're saying, and it's a very heavy topic, and I'm just gonna say it like this: we're gonna keep ahead of the game with all of this. We're gonna try to watch, if we can, any news reports and or like coverage with the court case, the trial itself. We want to thank you, of course, for coming out. We appreciate your story, everything that you shared, your perspective. Did you have any other comments that you wanted to give before going off?
Yes, sangria's for sis. Shout out to my girl over here. Make sure that she gets her well-deserves.
Yeah, and that's the lovely lady behind the camera for the show here. We just for anybody who's new to the show, we have a hashtag Sangria's for sis that goes out. And if you are, you know, willing and able, you have the little bit cash flow, we have our Cash App down below. Those Cash Apps that are hashtag Sangria's for sis will go directly to the homegirl. Mm-hmm. So if you have a little extra cash flow, please come on down there. If you have liked this video, if you found any value, if you want to continue to see what's going on with this trial with Khadiyjah Pendergraph, please like this video, comment down below if you have any thoughts about what was going on, and make sure you hit that subscription and the notification bell, because if not, you're going to miss out. All right, this has been your boy Juice and the lovely Purple. And you guys have a lovely night. Please keep yourself safe. And this is Juice. Peace.